when you took the auditing problem subject. I'm not sure ilang subjects yon here in PSB Manila, but in my by the way, I'm also a professor or a lecturer in I Academy, so we're also offering uh, BSA course. So it started 3 years ago, and yeah, auditing problems there. We have three subjects, or two subjects. Pala, no, two subjects excluding the integrated review. So two parts yun, audit of assets and then also audit of liabilities and equity. So I'm not sure if that's how it is set up here in PSBA as well. But anyway, the expectation is that you took this took this auditing problem course already, and this will always serve as a review. No? So sabi nga review, and so um, but even if it's a review, of course, may mga nakalimutan na, 'di ba? Or may mga um, uh, pwedeng hindi na capture during the discussion. So hopefully we'll be able to tackle that here in this subject. All right. So rules, simple lang naman. You just participate, no? I ask for your respect. So while I'm talking, bahala kayo kung anong gusto niyo gawin diyan. Basta if I call your name, I want you to unmute yourself, no? Or provide answer to the problem or to the question that I will be raising. Okay? So pwede kayong kumain habang nagdi-discuss. But make sure that you'll be able to capture whatever is being discussed. Um, it's up to you naman, no? It's bahala kayo sa style nyo sa pag-aaral. And of course, my ask is for you to pass. I hope all of you here in this class will pass this term. So walang uulit, walang babagsak. So that, by the way, pang ilang ano na ba to? Is this your last, last term in PSBA?
Yes,
Then,
sir.
so you'll be graduating na. So this is
Okay.
very important pala, no? And I'm sure ayaw nyo namang maiwan, di ba? Ayaw nyo namang umulit. Lahat tayo gusto pumasa. Tama ba?
Yes, sir.
All right. So also, it's simple. The basis of your grade here will be coming from the results of your exam. No? So wala kung ano dyan. Kung ano yung lalabas sa ano ninyo yun ang magiging basis natin for the computation of your grades. By the way, is there anyone here aiming for a Latin honor? Meron ba? Meron ba nagabol? So medyo pardon me if I ask so many questions that hindi naman related dun sa but yeah, because it's my first time here in PSBA, and though it's not my first time to handle a class, no, like this. So gusto ko malaman lang din. Meron ba? Or maintaining a grade? Mukhang wala. So let's be interactive, guys, ha. Answer, unmute yourself. Hindi na kailangan basta hindi yan nakakabastos, no? Uh, if you will answer a question, or you want to add something about the discussion, just unmute yourself. I'm okay with that. Okay? Or para as ano lang din, a sign of respect, if someone is talking, no, you can raise your hand, no, and your virtual hand, and then unmute yourself, then speak up. Okay? Is that clear? Any comments? Meron ba tayong can you share with me as well how you do it in your other classes, specifically in your other integrated review classes? Walang magsasalita.
Sir, good morning po.
Good morning, Angelica.
Sir, tanong ko lang po, sa quizzes po ba may binigay na po na policy yung school
Yan,
regarding po sa schedule?
all right. So that's something that I need to coordinate with the new chairman, no? Um, and with Ma'am Janet. So probably next meeting natin na malalaman. So makipag ano muna ako sa kanila. I need to reach out to them. Actually, ang kausap ko kasi dito previously si Sir Ralph Caro. So nagpalit na tayo ng chair, right? So I haven't talked to Chairman Lopo. So yun. But how do you did before ba? Or in your other integrated review class? Probably
Before,
similar lang then. Yeah, sige, Angelica.
before daw po kasi every Monday and Tuesday yung quizzes. Hindi po tumatama sa schedule ng subject.
So that hindi ma-skip yung yung lecture or yung class
Yes po.
mo, no? Yeah, probably the same. So ang ginagawa for dun sa refresher course naman is we're um recording the supposedly the topic that supposedly i-discussed during the quiz day. So before they took the quiz or before they took they take the graded exam nila, we provide that ahead. So parang 3 days before. So that will already serve as the record. But probably in your case it's different since this is integrated review, no? So I'll get back to you on that, Angelica and class. Sige.
Thank you po.
All right. Sige. And anything else? Wala na bang ibang comments? Questions? Wala na. So start na talaga tayo sa discussion proper. So lecture proper na tayo. Hopefully when we started our lecture dito dadami ang clarifications, questions or other things to add doon sa discussion. Okay? So guys, ano pala no, gagawin natin din every meeting. So like if there are 30 problems, hahatiin natin 'yon isa-isa, no? Isa-isa sa inyo magsasagot, no? Or usually kasi if in the auditing problems, so we have like 8 to 10 straight prob, no? So hatiin natin 'yon, no? I will assign. So based on the list, I will call your name, no? So be ready to answer the problem. Is that okay? So that I will know if you are really participating, di ba? This is an online class. Medyo mahirap natin malaman and naka ano pa lahat, di ba? Naka-close yung cameras and naka-mute. So how will I know if you are really listening? So even if I said that you can do whatever you want while we are doing while I'm doing the discussion, no? My only ask is that be ready. You are ready. Make sure that you are ready. If I call your name, no? And provide your answer. In that way, I will know kung sino talaga yung attentive during the class. Okay? Sige. So wala nang tanong ha. So we can already start with our discussion. So Sorry for the ano, like I was only able to post the material last night. Actually, it's almost 12 midnight na yata yan. But hopefully you were able to browse it before you or you were already able to access it, and now browsing that material or handouts. So the way I structured our review is similar to how it is um, structured in the um, syllabus for CPA examination. So we'll start with the basic, of course, no, basic concepts of financial statements audit. So bakit nung magbe-basic concepts pa tayo? This is auditing problem. It's very important that you understand that because it's auditing problem, di ba? Puro computation lang to, no? You have to understand and why we are doing. So what procedures are we supposed to do to perform, and why are we doing these procedures? Are we getting the or are we satisfying our objective? So remember, if we are auditing the financial statements, what we are trying to conclude is the on the fairness of the financial statements. No? So we provide an opinion at the end of our audit, to tell or to conclude whether the financial statements are presented in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles. So basically, here in the Philippines, that gap is the Philippine Financial Reporting Standards. Diba? So that's why it's very important that we also understand the basic concepts, and these concepts will be useful as we go along with the specific financial statement line items. So when I say financial statement line items, I'm referring to the cash and cash equivalents, diba? The financial statement line items under your order to cash. So these are your revenues, receivables, and other related, trade receivables and other related receivables. When we go to your uh, manufacturing and warehousing cycle, so basically the financial statement line items affected here are inventories, the cost of sales, yan, and other related expenses. So basically, yun yung ano natin dito. That's the reason why we have to start with the basic concepts of financial statements. Okay, so let me share my other screen so that may guide tayo for our discussion. You can also tell me if my approach is something na hindi nakakatulong sa inyo, or something that can still be improved. So parang paano ba natin siya gagawin para maging ano sa inyo, no? Uh, Useful tong integrated review. So you can also comment on that, guys. Okay? So those are my expectations, and I hope you'll help me with ano as well, no? You'll really um, cooperate, and really participate in this objective for this class. By the way, what book did you use during your auditing problem class? I'm still audible. Can you still hear me?
Yes po, sir. Wala po kaming required na book for po the audit problem.
Sa Lusagkol. Meron bang auditing problems sa Lusagkol? I don't think so. Unless I haven't seen it. Scala. Okay. All right. Sige. So, anyway, regardless, no, whatever book that you use, um, ano naman, parehas lang naman yung ano natin, no? So, Scala. Alright, Scala. Sige. And how was your, hindi, wag na lang na natin tanongin. So, dito na lang. So, basically, ayan. So, again, balik na ako dito sa ano natin, no? So, we'll start with the discussion of the basic concepts of the financial statements audit. So, when we say financial statements audit again, our objective is to determine whether the financial statements are presented by the management or that are presented by the management. So basically, this presented by the management is the assertions. It's the management assertions. This is what we call the management assertions, or what they are representing as. No? So if they presented their, or if they provided their financial statements, it means they are confirming that these financial statements, or the balances and transactions, as well as the disclosures presented in the financial statements, are correct, are complete, accurate, uh, owned by the company. No, they have their the liabilities are actual obligations, or constructive obligations of the company. Um, Accurate. They are properly valued. Okay, so these are the assertions. And yan, sasabi nila that these are free of biases and are prepared in accordance with. So free of biases. So basically, that's part of the representation, or part of the assertion. It means there are no fraud, or any any um, errors, material errors, no, in the financial statements. And it says here they are prepared, no, in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework. So basically, the applicable financial reporting framework pertains to the PFRS, or PFRS for SME, or we also have the PFRS for SE. So that's the management's assertion, and this reporting framework aims to represent information that is relevant and faithfully represented. So yun yung ano nila, no, management's assertion. So the audit, since the intention is to enhance or provide additional comfort, no, on the users of the financial statements. So the financial statement audit should be conducted independently, and that should be performed by an independent or by an external auditor, no, who is a CPA. Not all, but in the Philippines, the auditor should not only be a CPA, but there are certain regulations um, being imposed by SEC. So for certain industries, there is a requirement that an auditor must possess this, or has this experience before they can get their accreditation from the SEC. Also, the auditor or the CPAs need to obtain BOA accreditation. So if you will ask me at this stage, pwede na ba kayo mag-audit? Pwede naman, but you cannot sign an audit opinion. Okay? So what you can do is assist or you can execute the procedures. You can perform the inspection of documents, no, or you can also help in the risk assessment part, but you cannot sign the audit opinion. It should be signed by someone who is accredited by the BOA and the SEC, as well as the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Okay, so that's the purpose. And basically, when we talk about management's assertion, so later on, if we go to the specific financial statement line items, titignan natin what's the audit objective. So basically, the objective is for us to determine, or to confirm the occurrence of the transactions. So how do we do that? So that's how we determine the audit procedures necessary to address this management assertion. And basically, when we say management assertion, um, when we prepare or when we before we determine or arrive at the our audit response or audit procedures, we need to perform a risk assessment. So looking at the management's assertions, no, we determine what could go wrong. So when you say, let's say for example, occurrence. So what's the risk here? There is a risk that the transactions are, or the sales transactions are fictitious. These are not actual sales transactions. So it means these transactions did not occur, right? So if these are fictitious transactions or the transactions did not occur, then is it correct to include that in the financial statements? So yeah, so if that's the risk that we have identified, then what will be our the invoices, the related delivery receipts, as well as the sales orders. If that's how the sales transactions are initiated, and then validate if these are really so through the delivery receipts we can check if it was really received or that the goods were already were really delivered to the um, buyer, no. And of course we apply there this the standards, no, the PFRs for PFR 16 or 15 rather, if we are looking at sales transactions, yeah. So that's how we look at or how we determine, no, the right procedure to perform uh, on a certain um, assertion, management's assertion. Okay, so just a refresher. So when we say occurrence, it means the transactions and events that have been recorded or disclosed have occurred. No, so transactions recorded or disclosed actually happen and pertain to the entity. So yun nga. Um, so we need to check that. Ano, no? So there should be an evidence that will let us that will give us the comfort, no, to say that totoo yan na transaction. It really occurred. The company really has that sales transaction. Okay? So basically, when we say occurrence as well, we are pertaining to the profit or loss items. So occurrence of expenses, occurrence of revenue. Okay? I-zoom natin yung word. Ayan. Sige, i-ano ko muna yung, close ko muna yung G-sheet since wala pa naman tayong ano. So later on, we'll use that G-sheet for the computation. Okay? So can you see it clearly now? Alright, sige. Alright, so yan. So I provided also here is a relevant test or example of testing. No? Select a sample of entries. So when we validate the occurrence, no, from the accounting records, so usually we start from the financial statements, diba? And that financial statements will come from, if you remember the accounting cycle, diba? So we start with identifying the transactions, and then once the transactions were identified, then we'll go to journalizing, diba? Journalizing, and then after journalizing, posting, then posting, going to trial balance, then trial balance, adjusted trial balance, hanggang umabot tayo sa financial statements, diba? So when we are doing the audit, so that accounting cycle is the what the accountants, no, are following. So they do that from identifying hanggang financial statements. As so sabi ko as kasi I assume auditors din kayo, 'di ba? So uh, as auditors, we start from that end product ng accounting, which is the financial statements, and then we go back to the underlying information or our underlying supports, no. So pag sinabi niya the cash or the revenue amount is 10 million, no? So we have to validate, we have to check the occurrence of this 10 million sales transactions. So by tracing it back, so sabi dito, ang example dito is sample entries. So from the general ledger, we get the um, a sample. So sampling basis lang din kasi tayo, 'di ba? We cannot um, do 100% testing, since that will be impossible for us to complete, no, in a short duration. So basically, just to give you an idea, an audit will run for uh, a minimum probably of 1 week. So within 1 week, uh, if that's probably for small entities, to as longer as 3 months or 6 months, depende. No, so if it's a bigger company, or what we are auditing is a bigger entity with the voluminous transactions, then it will take us 3 months or 6 months to complete. But even we have that longer period, um, it's still impossible to validate 100,000 of transactions, or ano. So sampling method lang tayo. That's why the standards allow us to do um, sampling, no? And that's also the one of the limitations of audit. That's why we can only provide reasonable assurance rather than an absolute assurance. Okay, so going back here, so yeah, so we select samples, no, from the sales account in the general ledger. So that's the records, no, that's part of the accounting cycle. So bumalik na tayo from financial statements going back to the listing or to the general ledger, no? And that sales accounts or that sales transactions, or that the entry related to that sales transactions will be traced back. So take note of that when we are looking at occurrence from listing or from the accounting records going back to the supporting documents such as invoices, delivery receipts, and sales orders. So that's how we validate occurrence from listing, from accounting records, going back to the supporting documents. So galing ka dito sa um, ano bang part to? Posting, no? Na part ng accounting cycle. Babalik tayo dun sa identifying the transactions, wherein we identify, we get, or we the accountants compile the documents, the supporting documents, no, such as the invoices and the related documents. Okay? Oh, medyo mahaba na kagad yun natin. That's occurrence pa lang, no? And basically, again, this is for P&L accounts, no? Existence. So usually, if you will see in the books, or in the even in the other reference materials, you will see existence or occurrence, no? So that's the same. They have the same objective, except that for existence, we usually use this assertion for balance sheet accounts. So assets, liabilities, and equity. Nandyan ba yan? Are the assets, liabilities, and equity existing? So when we say existence of assets, so like for example, inventories, di ba? We check if meron ba talagang inventory items. Cash, di ba? We do cash count to check if the amounts of cash as presented in the financial statements are really existing, no? Um, not only cash count, of course, mas malaki ang cash in bank. So how do we check that? So we confirm, di ba? We ask the banks to confirm if the assets are really existing, or if the cash balances presented in the financial statements are really existing. Okay? So yan, sabi dito, this means assets and liabilities really do exist, and there has been no overstatement. So so similar, this occurrence will start from the accounting records, no? From the general ledger going to the supporting documents such as bank statements if we are looking at the cash in bank. If it's an inventory item, we go to the warehouse, no? Check the actual or the physical inventories. That's why if we will uh, I don't know if nag-ano na rin kayo, nag OJT na kayo, no? Nagkaroon na kayo ng internship. But you will hear if you like later on you will join an auditing firm, you will be yung first task usually of a new joiner or of a newbie is to attend a physical inventory count. And that's one of the purpose of that, to check the existence of the inventory balances. Okay? So yeah, physical verification of non-current assets, inventories, circularization of circularization of receivables, so circularization or confirmation of receivables, no, as well as the payables and bank letters. Okay, so sending out confirmation letters to the customers to check if the receivables balances are correct, are existing. Okay, so that's existence, and then completeness. It means all transactions and events and related assets, liabilities, and equity should have been recorded. Have been recorded. So from this, for this um, assertion, no, kabaliktaran to nung sa existence. So dito we want to check if all the transactions have been recorded. So how? Then we go back to the identification of transactions, di ba? Or probably hindi maisama do sa identification of transactions because the process of the company is they only record all transactions that have been included in that process, no, in that identification. So pwede nilang i-off books yung ibang transactions. So what we're going to do, then we have to do spot checks, di ba? So a good example of that is during the physical inventory count. So you are there in the warehouse, you check, no? May nakita tayong isang inventory. So what SKU is that, or what specific item is this? Where can I find this in the listing? So you can ask that from the one assisting you in the physical count, no? So it means when we say completeness, we are coming from, or we are looking at the transactions, no? All the transactions, possible transactions, no, that or the regular transactions that the company is doing, and trace it to, or check it if it's included in the accounting records. So sabi nga dito, assets, all transactions events, so it means revenue, income, expenses, losses, no? And related assets, liabilities, and equity should have been recorded. That should have been recorded, have been recorded. Okay? So completeness also includes checking of the related disclosures. So this time in this part, no, related disclosures, you are going to refer to the accounting framework or the accounting standards. So ano bang nire-require, what are the disclosures required when there are related party transactions, no? um, or in terms of the inventories, ano bang, what are the other disclosures required, or that should be required or included in the financial statements. All right, so that's for completeness. And then accuracy, basically these are the amounts and other or the amounts and other data relating to recorded transactions and events, and related assets, liabilities, and equities have been recorded appropriately. So how do we say it's appropriately recorded? So from the records, we check the supporting documents. So the amounts in the records and the supporting documents should tie up. So kung ang sabi dun sa accounting record, the sales transactions amounted to 100,000, so dapat ang nasa invoice is 100,000 din, di ba? If you're going to check the details of the invoice against delivery receipts, dapat the quantity in the invoice, so is, let's say it's the total quantity is 100, and then the price per um, unit is 1,000. So dapat that 100 quantity can be traceable to the delivery receipts. So the number of items, or the quantity in the delivery receipts should be 100. Okay? As well, so also the selling price. So basically the selling price in a sales transaction can be traced to the sales orders. Kasi what is written in that, or what is in, uh, or the selling price in the sales orders, no, are basically the amount that was agreed or that were agreed with the buyers, di ba? So they have to agree first. Sige, I will buy that goods for 1,000 pesos. So dapat yun yung reflected in the sales orders. Okay? So that's with that assumption, if we are going to look at the sales invoice, dapat then the sales price in the sales invoice is the same as the selling price in the sales orders. Okay, so that's how we validate accuracy. Okay, so sabi dito, a good example or relevant test is the performance or calculations of invoice or even payroll. So pag payroll, we check the uh, employee contract. Diba? From the employee contract, we do our calculation and like multiply by number of hours multiplied by the rate per hour, no, of that employee, and then trace it back to the accounting records. So that's for accuracy. Then we also have the valuation and allocation. So guys, remember all of this, I don't know, all this management assertions, kasi it will also help you when you are reviewing or when you are uh, dito, solving a problem, no? So malalaman mo kung ano yung tama or mali dun sa sa problem by having this understanding of the management's assertions. All right? So valuation and allocation. So it means any resulting valuation or allocation adjustments. So basically the measurement of the assets, liabilities, and equity. So it means valuation and allocation usually pertains to uh, balance sheet items. Why usually? So there are instances, no, wherein we consider valuation in the on the um, P&L or profit or loss items. Okay, so pwede sa revenue, there are certain estimates there or there are certain adjustments that should be taken, no? Because the determination of the revenue amount is or considers estimates. So in that case, there should be a proper uh, evaluation or measurement on how the revenues are estimated. Okay, but usually again, valuation and allocation is for balance sheet accounts or assets, liabilities, and equities. So we follow here the rules, no, or the standards. So like in the case of receivables, no, how should we um, value the receivables? O, pagbabato na dito ngayon, Rika. How should receivables be measured or valued in the financial statements? Ano sabi ng standard? Rika? Rika Jane Aquino? Are you there, Rika? Hindi tayo magpo-proceed hanggat di sumagot si Rika. All right. Sige. So how do we measure? How do we measure the accounts receivable in the financial statements? Ano ba sinasabi ng standards? Fair value? Fair value? Do you agree with that, class? Di ba amortized cost? Yeah, I understand. Receivables is a financial instrument, pero 'di ba may different tayo, no? Measurement on investments or financial instruments, no? So accounts receivables should be measured at amortized cost less any impairment. So in short, net realizable value din yan. Di ba? Parang katulad do sa inventories. So look at the uh, accounts receivable profile. So thank you, Rika, by the way. No, so we look at the accounts receivable profile, no, of the company and check, or the management, hindi pala tayo yun. The management should look at the accounts receivable profile and determine if there are any uh, accounts, no, that will lead to potential losses. So under IFRS 9 or PFRS 9, no, the entities should consider calculating the expected credit losses. So a futuristic method of determining the allowance for doubtful accounts. Okay, so aside from the specifically identified items, they also have to look at the possibilities of losses from the remaining items. So that's valuation. Okay. Um, what else? Net realizable value. Anyway, na-mention ko na, di ba? So net realizable value, it comes to inventories. All right. So if you look at the financial statements, dapat the presentation or the amount presented is the lower of cost or net realizable value. And that's we are going what we validate, no, as auditors. We check if um, the companies or the inventories, so on item by item basis or sometimes in a group of inventories, no, we check whether these are presented, or if we check if the cost of these inventories are lower than the net realizable value. So it means the company is still expecting a profit, no? So when they sell the inventory items, they will be able to sell it at a high at a profit. Hindi yung pag binenta nila, lugi na, palugi. So in that case, the inventories should be recorded at the net realizable value. No? Tatandaan nyo rin, no? When we are talking about assets, we go to the conservative approach, di ba? So when I say conservative approach, if we are not sure that this asset is really an asset, so pwedeng hindi na yan yung value niya or it's not an existing one, no? Then do not recognize it. Contingent assets, di ba? These are not uh, recorded or even disclosed in the financial statements, no? So that's our approach for asset items. If it's a liabilities, ganun din, conservatism naman on the other way around, no? We record if we are uh, um, sure or we know that there is a future obligation resulting from a current or from the present obligation or present event. Okay, so like the contingent liabilities or like the mga ongoing litigations, we need to check that whether uh, there is a need to recognize provision. Okay, that's also part of valuation, no, and allocation. Okay, next is cut off. So recorded in the proper accounting period. It means all transactions that happened or that occurred, or um, the amounts recorded in the financial statements, no, pertain to transactions for that current period. So wala dapat yung sales transactions, no, that happened in the following year and then included dyan. So usually here, when we're talking about cut off, it's very important that you remember yung shipping terms. Diba? FOB shipping point, FOB destination. So you will encounter in the problems usually yung uh, the sales transactions or the arrangement between the buyers and the buyer and the seller is to uh, deliver or to ship the goods, no, with the shipping term of FOB shipping point. So the date, no, kailan siya shinip, and date kailan siya nakarating. These are the important dates that should be looked at in order for us to determine proper cut-off, no, or recording of the transactions in the proper period. Okay, So, bisa na natin. Medyo magna-9 na. So, rights and obligations. So, basically, title. No? The entity has a title, legal title or control. So, they really own. They have the rights to an asset or has an obligation to repay that liability. So, ano ba yung mga pwede natin tingnan dito? So, if we are pertaining to a land, for example, then we look at the title, di ba? Land title. Transfer of um, um, deed of the land title, no, to the company. If it's a receivables, so the company really has a claim, no. So we can con- uh, consider this as well when we are validating the occurrence and existence assertion. So pag na-check natin yun, pwede natin sabihin, okay, there's really a sales transactions, and as a result of that, the company really has a right to claim, no? Of course, we need to check as well the collections. Para mamaya na-collecta na pala yan. So, but it's still in the receivables, di ba? So, these are the procedures that we usually consider that to address or to have comfort over rights and obligations. Classification and presentation. So, when we say classification, it means they are proper, or the transactions and the assets, liabilities, and equities are recorded in the proper accounts. So, like for example, when the company purchase a raw materials, so it should not be posted to other types of expenses. It should be part of the purchases, no? Especially if the company is using ano bang ginagamit ng company? What inventory system are they following when you see this account purchases in their financial statements or in their books? Periodic system. Very good, Michaela. Yun. So if they're using in periodic system, di ba, you will see a purchases account. If it's perpetual, hindi mo yan makikita kasi it's directly debited to inventory. No, all purchases are directly debited to inventories. Okay? So yan. A good example of this, yung mga intangible assets as well, di ba? So when to classify the expenditures as part of uh, or capitalizable assets or capitalizable intangible assets, no? So we have to determine that tama ba na si development or si research and development expense is part of intangible assets, or it should be expense out. Okay? So that's classification. Presentation, on the other hand, ito naman yung the descriptions, disclosures of transactions, no? Uh, aggregation of the asset, or disaggregation of the transactions, assets, liabilities, and equity. So basically, if we are talking about presentation, um, whether certain assets can be grouped for like trade and other receivables, ganyan, no? Prepayments and other assets. So mga ganyan yung titignan natin, no? Um, liabilities or trade payables and other liabilities. So that's presentation. And there should be under assets. Pagka-asset yan, di ba? If the company has, or if it pertains to a financial statement items where the company has future benefits, no, and there's expected cash or the expected flow of resources to the company, that's an asset. Pero pagkabaliktaran yan, it's liabilities. Okay, so dito kailangan mo ma-determine yan, di ba? Ano ba dapat to? Ano bang tamang presentation ng transactions and balances na to? Okay? So basically, those are the management assertions that you should remember. This part, I think it's more on auditing theory na to na part, but you can check this, no? So basically, the audit process, can be divided into 4. So from pre-engagement activities and up to completing the activities, and each division or each part no, uh, will have different activities that should be completed or that should be performed by an auditor. So quickly lang, since we have still 2 minutes before 9 a.m. So pre-engagement activities. So before an auditor engage no, into a or to provide a service to a client, they should perform pre-acceptance procedures or pre-engagement activities. So they have to check whether it's really okay to engage, no, to enter into an agreement with this client. Ano ba ibig sabihin? It's okay. There are no independence issues. There are no integrity issues, no. There will be no problem when it comes to yung dito presenting the financial statements in the correct no in the correct presentation or in based on the applicable standards, checking if the company or if the auditor has sufficient resources, mobilization of engagement team, of course, um preparing and asking for um, or agreeing the terms and conditions through a letter of engagement or engagement letters. So issuance of engagement letters before starting the audit proper. So dapat gawa muna to, na-complete na to ni auditor before they can proceed to the next um, procedure, which is basically here in this part is the risk assessment part. So we do the risk-based approach here, not top-down risk-based approach. It means we start from obtaining an understanding of the client, its business and industry. So here you will encounter the terms business risk, diba? Financial statements level risk, mga ganon. Uh, control environment, so yung COSO components. No? And then obtaining an understanding of the internal controls, materiality, determining the materiality as well as the audit risk. So the identifying which accounts or which assertions no has a significant risk or higher risk, which assertions has a normal risk. No, here you will encounter yung term na risk of material misstatements in a financial statement line item on a financial statement line item, no, so yung uh, management override of controls. So these are the things that you will encounter in this part, no. Then yung third part is evidence gathering. It is where you already obtain the audit evidence. So dito natin makikita yung mga sampling method, no. How do you obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. Okay, so yun lang naman require ni standard eh. You have to ensure that you obtain the sufficient appropriate evidence in order for you to avoid anong klaseng risk yun? Ano yung tinatawag nating ano dito? Yung risk of issuing the wrong opinion. What kind of risk is that?
Audit risk po.
Audit risk, correct. Okay? Which is, so Carl, follow-up question. Audit risk is composed of, ano yung 3 components of audit risk?
Ano po? Control risk, inherent
Okay.
risk,
And
detection risk.
detection risk. And the control risk and inherent risk, kanino galing to? Uncontrollable ni auditor to dahil
Wait lang po. So ano po siya? Risk of material misstatements?
okay, risk of material misstatements kay risk of material misstatements, it means coming from the company or coming from the financial statement. So without control, no, the auditor has no control over this risk. So kung ano yung nandyan, di ba? Ano yung nakikita nating meron sa company, di ba? Kulang sa controls ba or okay yung controls? They have strong controls in place. So that's the risk of material misstatements. So dito yan sa first sa second part, no? And then we add that detection risk, ito na yon. We have identified the risk, and so we have to provide, or we have to uh, prepare, no, an audit program that will give us the sufficient and appropriate evidence to address the risk of material misstatements, right? So if we are able to do that, then of course we will be avoiding the audit risk, or we will be reducing the audit risk, or the risk of issuing wrong opinion. And dito na yon, papasok sa completing the audit and reporting. So based on these procedures that we perform, based on the risk that we identified and our responses to this risk, we will determine the type of opinion that we will be issuing. But aside from that, of course, there are other procedures that should be done before arriving at the uh, conclusion, no? So before we provide an unqualified opinion, for example, we have to check, meron pa ba tayong ibang kailangan consider, like events after the reporting period, so subsequent events or past 10, di ba? Review of related party relationships and transactions, past 24. Titignan natin yan. Review of contingencies. Ano nga ba to? Saan galing to? Past, PS, 37 ba? If we're talking about contingencies. Oh, past 37. Ako nasasagot. Review of the reasonableness of estimates. So that's based on the requirement of the PSA 540 revised, no? And analytical procedures is also performed before we provide our audit opinion. And our audit opinion, ano yung 4 types of audit opinion? Sinong malakas ang loob? Dito, si Angelica Rose Santillan. Ano ba pwede mong issue na type of opinion? Sabi siguro Angelica, ba to? Auditing problems ba to or auditing theory? O yan, sige, si Jemica muna, no? Rika, you already answered kanina, no? So, Jemica Rodriguez.
Unqualified, qualified,
Unqualified.
qualified, adverse, and disclaimer.
Okay, ano pinagkaiba nun? What's the difference between among these 4 types of? When do we issue unqualified opinion?
If the financial statements are free from misstatements po. Then yung qualified po, free from material misstatements po, pero may mga exceptions po na naka-specify dun sa opinion.
Ano examples? Anong pinagkaiba ni qualified kay so unqualified, there's no modification, so we are comfortable, no, that the financial statements are free from material misstatements. Well, what about when we are issuing qualified? When do we issue qualified, adverse, or disclaimer? Ano ba pinagkaiba ng tatlo? Modified opinions kasi itong tatlo, di ba? So how do we differentiate these 3? Or what's the difference among these 3? Ayan, baka si Rika. Rika Jane. Or anyone? Oh yes, Rika. O, pagtulungan nyo ng dalawa, Jamaica. Jamaica ba or Jamaica? O, si Rika na muna for qualified. And then you explain.
Qualified or disclaimer.
Oh, wait lang, napuputol yung line mo yata, no? Jamaica. Sige, Rika, go ahead.
Kapag qualified opinion, sir, yung restriction, kapag, explain, yung, pag yung,
Sige, I'll give an example. Deviation from standard. Saan siya? Qualified, disclaimer, or adverse? So for example, ito required standard pero hindi finalo. Oh yes, Jovert. Sige, tutulungan ka na ni Jovert. Ika.
Sa qualified po, sir.
Sa qualified, hindi ba siya
Apa,
pwede ring maging adverse?
sa adverse, kasi sa qualified, di ba, sir, disclosure lang siya. Wala siya sa disclosure.
Oh, yung sa adverse, ano siya? Di ba pwede din dan? Oh, yan. To clarify, no? Pag sinabi natin qualified, manageable pa. Ito na lang isipin nyo, manageable pa. Sige, may nagtaas si Joanne. Baka, ma-explain niya.
Sir, pag qualified, qualified po. Pag adverse po kasi yung opinion, yung mga auditors po or if tayo yung auditor, hindi po talaga tayo satisfied dun sa or nakadiscover po tayo ng high level of material misstatements or irregularities po from the company, sir, when we audit po.
Sige. Right, sige. Thank you, Joanne, Jobert, Rika, and Jamaica. No? So basically, in terms of pervasiveness, so gaano karami ba yung affected, no? Na accounts. So like for example, we can issue qualified opinion if we're pertaining only to one. So sabi siguro gusto siguro sabihin ni Joanne is high tag ito, yung high risk or high possibility of having significant mistake. So for example, isa lang, like hindi finalo ni company yung standards related to receivables, no? Ayaw niyang, or revenue na lang kasi so ayaw niyang pumayag na yung revenue is i-record natin ng tama. Pero tama pa rin naman yung other accounts, receivables, another yung related accounts, no, to the revenue. So we can issue a qualified opinion on that since hindi naman ganun karami, no. So in terms of magnitude of the misstatements in the financial statements, that's where we base our the type of opinion that we can issue. Ngayon, if like hindi na niya in-adjust yung sa revenue, ayaw pa niya sa receivables, cost of sales, inventories, another related accounts, it means wala na, di ba? Sobrang ang dami na nating hindi natin makuha na ng comfort. Then, if they will still insist as to issue an opinion on that, then we can provide an adverse opinion. So, deviation lang naman yon, no, from the standards. It means, andun pa rin naman, or they want to follow a different framework or different policy, pero hindi yun yung generally accepted, no? Whereas if it's qualified and so laging may pwedeng qualified and adverse, qualified or disclaimer, no? Pag scope limitation, ano natin dito, issue natin, like wala talagang way to validate the cash or the other related accounts and pervasive yung impact sa financial statements, then we should issue disclaimer, no? Qualified naman if like isang item lang yan or pwedeng hindi ganun kalaki yung impact sa buong financial statements. Okay? So pagka nagbigay ng sa inyo ng problem na gano'n, tignan natin yung angle na yon, di ba? Yung aspect na yon. How material is it? How pervasive is the impact of the misstatements in the financial statements? And that's where we identify or determine whether we issue qualified or we can issue qualified opinion or we should issue a disclaimer or adverse opinion. Okay? Questions on that? So questions so far? Comments? But have you seen the financial statements?
Yes po.
Complete set of financial statements, Micah, with an audited financial statements. Yun na lang.
Yes po, sir.
Okay. So complete yan, no? So with auditor's opinion, with the financial statements, no? So balance sheet, income statement, cash flows, equity, and the notes to the financial statements. No? Usually in the Philippines, you will also see additional report, no, yung supplementary part of for in um, to comply with the requirements of the Bureau of Internal Revenue. So yun another part of the financial statements yun. Okay? And then you will see there, di ba, the maraming transactions or maraming nakalagay, di ba? So that's where we base the results of our audit, or that's where we base our audit. And then from there, we provide the auditor's opinion. Okay, anyway, that's something that should be covered in your auditing theory. So hindi ko naman ano yan, no? Nadaanan lang dito. So ayan, ito pala, oh. Ayan, both material and pervasive. Dapat. Both material and pervasive. Okay? So dito sa ano, sinasabi pa pag sa disclaimer, we don't know how much really is the misstatements because there's a limitation. We cannot validate, di ba? We cannot see if the amount that you are presenting in the financial statements is correct, complete, accurate, existing. You don't have any accounting, or you don't have any records, or you don't have any supporting documents. Okay? Yeah. I think last part of this lecture in this handout is the working trial balance. No? So basically, when you are solving a problem, you can always go back to the source of the balances, which is the trial balance, and this trial balance came from ito, di ba? Journal entries. Very basic to, di ba? Ito yung basic natin eh. Lahat naman ng meron sa accounting nag-start dito, di ba? If you know this by heart, if you know the accounting equation and the normal balances of the accounts, it will be easier for you to solve a problem. No? Of course, nandun na rin yung kailangan mong alam, yung standards. Di ba? What's the measurement? What's the recognition requirement and measurement? No? Recognition and measurement, laging magkasama yan. Di ba? So, you can prepare this, especially if it's a long problem. Di ba? You can prepare this kind of format. No? So we go to the account, you write the account, and then what's the unadjusted, meaning based on the given information yan. No? And then you analyze each transaction, and if every transaction, you will determine if there's an adjustment necessary. Yeah? And then you compute for the adjusted balances. So either the account is under P&L or under your statements of financial position. Alright, so that's ito additional na lang to, no? So tip lang sa inyo. But you have your style again. Kayo yung ano doon kung saan mas madali sa inyo. But I also recommend this, doing this format when computing a problem. Of course, hindi mo kailangan lagyan ng box na ganyan, di ba? Pwedeng isulat mo lang ano yung account na to, and then ano ba yung initial entry, ito yung audit adjustments dapat, so ito adjusted, and then you determine whether it's by my question, di ba? Sometimes, how much is the total assets, or how much is the adjustment in the balance sheet? So, pwedeng ganun ang tanong, di ba? How much is the adjusted revenue or income during the year? Okay? So, any questions?
Wala na po.
Wala na. Okay, so let's move to the multiple choice questions and problems. No, but before that, is it okay if we'll have a 10 minutes screen break?
Yes po, sir.
Sige. Break muna tayo for 10 minutes. So please go back to the plenary at 9:30. No? So may bonus tayong 1 minute. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Alright, sige. So see you at 9:30. Alright. So can you please raise your virtual hand if you're back? Okay. Sige. So you can put down the virtual hand now. So let's start with the multiple choice questions muna, no? Before we go to the problem mismo. So, ano muna tayo? So there are 18 questions here. So warm up muna. Okay. So Bryce, can you lower down the virtual hand? Okay. So let's start with item number 1. So we have here 18 multiple choice questions. So we'll start with financial statements audit aims to. So who would like to answer this first question? Ang daming nagtaas ah. Sige, I will call na lang. So si Jessie Bell Tumaliwan.
Hello sir, rinig po ba ako?
Yes, Jessie.
Ah, kailangan ko po babasahin sir yung question.
Sige, basahin natin. Ano.
So number 1, a financial statement audit aims to A. Present financial information about an entity for use by external users. B. Determine whether the financial statements presented by the management are preferred in accordance with an application financial reporting framework.
Uh-huh.
C. Determine whether the entity appropriately pays its income tax due. And letter D. Determine whether the entity is able to pay its maturing obligations. Letter B po, sir.
Okay, letter B. No? So remember that it's the determination whether the financial statements presented are prepared in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. So thank you, Jesse. So number 1 is B. Okay? Number 2, what manager's assertion? Ayan, si Dayan. Sige, Dayan.
Number two, what management's assertion does the auditor address when he or she obtains evidential matter on the appropriate balance of trade and other payables that will be shown in the statement of financial position?
Mm.
Letter, sagot na po ba or babasahin po yung?
Sige, answer na. Makili lang naman yun. Ano.
Letter C po, accuracy, valuation, and allocation.
Why accuracy, valuation, and allocation?
Kasi po tinatanong yung appropriate balance.
Okay, appropriate of balances. So, ang gagawin ni auditor dito is trace the amounts per record or per accounting records to the related or to the supporting documents such as invoices, right? So, the amount should tie up. So, dito yung kanina, di ba, pwedeng mag-recalculate si auditor multiplying the quantity by the price, no? And reconcile it with the balance per records. Okay, thank you, Diane. Number 3, management's assertion. All right, sige, see you. Sino yung Winsal? Winsal J. Winsal
Number
J.
3, what management assertions does the auditor address when he or she reviews the classification of a tract of land acquired exclusively for capital appreciation, presentation, and disclosure?
Why presentation disclosure?
Chinecheck po kasi dito if tama po yun ng account.
So what's the proper classification based on the given information? Kung ikaw si auditor, so ano yung magiging ano natin dito? Conclusion or assessment? Tract of land acquired exclusively for capital appreciation.
Investment po ba?
Investment property.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So tama. The land should be presented under investment property, and that part of the equity, PPE. Okay. Alright. Very good. Number 4. Mary Angela Cornejo.
Number 4, what management assertion does the auditor address when he obtains evidence on the shipping terms of inventories in transit shipped by a vendor? Letter B po, completeness.
Completeness? Okay, why completeness?
Kasi inaano po yung nung completeness nung inventory po.
Yan nga, bakit completeness? Paano niya na madidetermine dito? So by looking at the evidences, shipping terms, ano ba makikita natin sa shipping terms?
Yung quantity po nung isi-ship.
Quantity ba or kung kailan shinip? And what specific terms? So like for example, if the shipping term is FOB shipping point, di ba? So possible na hindi yan na-include during the physical count. So hindi siya kasama sa inventory balance. But since the shipment happened before end of the year, so dapat included na yan if shipping point yan, di ba? So yun yung gusto nyo gawin dito to determine if it's really complete. Actually, it will go hand in hand with completeness. So sometimes when we are validating the cut-off assertions, or completeness assertions, pwede natatamaan na din yung cut-off. Okay? So it's more on the shipping terms, no? FOB shipping point, so parang may I know if there are inventories, no, in transit at the end of the year. And then based on the list of inventory in transit, we check the shipping terms. And if there are in transit inventories with shipping terms of FOB shipping point or other similar types of shipping terms, no? So we have to determine if these are included in the inventory balances. Otherwise, there should be an adjustment. No? We have to record all those inventories in transits with shipping terms of FOB shipping point that are not included in the financial statements. So to ensure completeness of the inventory balance. Okay, thank you, Mary Angela. Next, number 5, Goodwin.
Which of the following is the main objective of the conduct of pre-engagement activities? Letter A, to determine whether or not to accept a new client or retain an existing client po.
Alright, so correct. What about yung BCD? Ano ba to? Saan to?
Bali po kasi yung letter D po is papasok po siya doon sa completing, ay sa audit report po. And ano po ba?
To set the amount of the audit fee to be charged?
Ano po sa letter bali po sa letter C, sa letter B po. Papasok po siya din po sa pre-engagement activities po. After po ma-classify ng auditor kung kung qualified po ba silang mag-perform ng audit po.
Okay. Sige. So it's one of the factors, no? So one of the factors. But to actually this three, no, is part of that, yeah, as mentioned by Goodwin, part of the pre-acceptance or pre-engagement procedures. No, except that yung letter A, it's already summarized the no, it's the summary of all of this. So part lang to, considerations lang to during the pre-engagement, no, procedures. Of course, you have to check or you have to agree on the audit fee. Be familiar with the working staff, though it's not a requirement, pero it will help the engagement team or the auditor, di ba, in performing its work, no, to assess likelihood of issuing an unqualified opinion. So at the start of the we can already determine, pero hindi siya no, it's not kasi we assess whether there are any events or circumstances that will lead us to issuing other types of opinion. So, pag sinabi mong qualified opinion, issue natin or na-determine natin at the onset pa lang that we will be issuing qualified opinion, adverse opinion, or disclaimer opinion, that will already raise no yung kumbaga we will classify this engagement as a high risk engagement, no, and we do that during the pre-engagement activities. So that pagdating natin dun sa next part, no, dun sa risk assessment natin and other hanggang dun sa completion, ibig sabihin nun dapat we need to consider na high risk high risk engagement to, so we have to perform more more work, no, more procedures as compared to if we classify it as some an entity wherein we will be issuing unqualified opinion and regular na to na natin na client natin, so pwede na nating i-low risk lang. Okay, so yeah, basically these are part of the pre-engagement activities, but yung letter A is the summary. Okay, so that's the main objective. Number 6, parang may nakita ko na nagtataas na hindi na tao. Si Eugene ba yun? Eugene? Are you still there, Eugene? Would you like to take number 6?
Okay. What is the main purpose of an auditor in his or her evaluation of the client's internal control system?
Yeah. Why do we need to check the internal controls or evaluate?
Letter C, sir, to determine the extent of audit procedures necessary to be performed.
Why not A, B, D?
Kasi, sir, when evaluating the internal control system, doon po natin ma-assess if whether extensive po ba yung mapaperform natin audit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So under PSA, no, Philippine Standards Auditing, we perform. So we are required to evaluate the client's internal control system to consider if we can put reliance, no, on the existing internal controls of the company. So if we can rely, then that's one way of obtaining an audit evidence as well. So if we consider that the internal controls are strong, pwede tayong mag-perform ng test of controls. And if we perform test of controls, then it will reduce. So yung sabi ni Eugene, it will affect, no, how extensive the audit procedures that we are going to perform is. So if we have a higher reliance on the controls, no, which we support through tests of controls, we can already perform or we can already obtain a low level of evidence in the substantive testing procedures. Okay, so that's the purpose of that. Bakit hindi siya yung A? Hindi naman to distribute, no? This should be part of your pre-engagement team mobilization, no, determining kung sino yung mga engagement teams that will be part of the team and then who will be assigned to the specific task. Not to accept, so pre-engagement din yan, di ba? Gather sufficient evidential matter. So basically, this is already the gathering information. So part of the ano na yan, kung the company determined that they can, or the auditor determined that he or she can rely on the internal controls of the company, no, and can perform or will perform tests of controls, no. So part of the third ano na to, yung dun sa evidence gathering activities of the auditor. Okay? Number 7. Yeah, iba naman. Si Winsal lang nagsagot ka na kanina. Yan, biglang nag-drop si Angeline. Si sumagot na to si Joanne kanina. Abigail Ocampo.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Abigail, number 7.
Which of the following pairs of accounts would an auditor most likely analyze on the same working paper? Notes receivable and interest income.
Okay, why these two can be analyzed together?
Kasi mostly po yung flow po ng income po yung tinitignan and yung nare-receive po natin yung chine-check.
They are interrelated, di ba?
Yep.
So, interest income is a result or is a product of the notes receivable. So, especially if it's an interest receivable. Notes receivable and accounts payable, are they related? Magkaiba to, di ba? One is an asset, the other one is a liability. Notes receivable and interest payable, the same, no? One is an asset, one is a liability. Hindi sila related. Interest income and interest expense, two different items din to, di ba? Two different matters. So one is arising from an asset, the other one is arising from a liability. So letter C, asset producing an income, is related or are related. No, that's why we can perform or we can analyze this too. So if we compute for the interest income or validate the interest income, we can use information related to notes receivable. Diba? The outstanding amount of receivables multiplied by the interest rate to get the interest income. Okay? So that's why we can analyze them on the same working papers. Agree? Silence means yes. Right, number 8. Any volunteer? Si Al Henry Rosendo.
The current file of an audit documentation most likely would include letter D, sir, analysis of account receivable.
Ano ba yung current file? Ano ba yung current file, Al? Al Henry. Ano yung other type of file? Kung mayroong current file, mayroong permanent file. Sige, sino yung nagtaas ng kamay? Yes, Lorraine. Lorraine Joy. Nag-drop na disconnect. So, the other type of file is the permanent file, no? Permanent file means or pertains to those documents. Ayan, Lorraine, nakabalik ka na. Does it explain?
Sorry po sir, na-exit po.
Okay, sige. So, what do we mean by current file?
Yung current file po, sir, yun po kasi yung ginagamit para i-maintain po yung audit documentation sa current year po.
Okay. So that's where we place the documentation related to the current year's audit. Whereas, meron tayong tinatawag na permanent file. Meron ba tayong question dito about that? Parang wala, no? Yung permanent file naman, on the other hand, pertains to a file or contains documents that are related to prior year files that end affecting current and future, no? Future financials or financial statements of the company. So examples nga dito, bond indenture of 20-year bonds payable. So probably this bond indenture was taken or issued uh, in 2015. So 2015 plus 20 years still applicable up to this year, di ba? Articles of incorporation, unless there is a change, di ba? Always applicable yan sa current or it will affect the current and future years, no? Pension plan contract, ganun din. So similar with articles of incorporation. Unless may bago dyan or there's a new contract or plan contract, pension plan contract, then this pension plan contract still applicable. Will be applicable in the current and future years. So yun yung difference ng, or that's the other type of files, no? So we have current files pertaining to current year's audit, permanent files pertaining to prior year affecting current and future years. Okay? Number 9. Who wants to take number 9? Sige. Si Jessery Galang. Jessery Galang. Are you with us, Jessery? Jessery. Okay, i-note natin. What about si Jonas Albert Atas?
Number 9, an audit documentation should letter B po, show that the accounting records agree or reconcile with the management.
Okay, so it means tama ba yung mali to? Not contain comments concerning engagement, management? Or yung letter C and letter D? Yung ba gusto sabihin, ano, Jonas?
Hindi naman po, sir. Parang mas close po yung letter B po.
Okay. So show that the accounting records agree or reconcile with the management. Usually, yung that's what what is expected, no, to be included in the financial or in the working papers or in our audit documentation. Letter A, not contain comments concerning management. So not all the time, di ba? There are instances wherein we consider or we have to document management's or any disagreement with the management, no, or any comments from the management related to the management. Letter C, be destroyed after an announcement has been made for litigation involving an audit engagement. Mali naman yon, di ba? So even if the the audit documentation is proprietary to us, no, hindi naman pwede na because there is a litigation, we will already destroy. So the our audit documentation serves as our evidence that we really performed, no? And we're able to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence to support our audit opinion. So, bakit mo siya i-destroy? Di ba? Letter D, the rule here in the Philippines is we are allowed to destruct our audit documentation after 10 years. So we have 10 years, no, to maintain, or we are required to maintain the audit documentation for 10 years. Number 9, letter D, be made available to others even without the consent of the audit client. So it's not allowed, no, confidentiality wise. At the same time, this is uh, the information that we are putting in our audit documentation should remain confidential. Okay, before we share it to the others, we have to obtain consent of the client. There should be an approval. So even yung current auditor, so even if we are the prior auditor and the current auditor, current year's auditor asks, no, to review, ask us to review our working papers or audit documentation, they have to obtain first the consent or an approval from the client before we can share our working papers or our audit documentation to them. Okay? Number 10. Ayan, si Kim. Kim,
In which of the following circumstances would an auditor choose between issuing a qualified opinion and issuing a disclaimer of opinion on a client's financial statements?
mhm.
Answer is letter C, inability to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. Kasi po, yung qualified opinion and disclaimer of opinion, pareho po sila hindi na-detect yung misstatements po.
Okay, so undetected misstatements. So pag undetected misstatements, disclaimer or qualified opinion. No? So depende sa materiality, di ba, and pervasiveness of the effect. Pag identified, we have detected the misstatements, such as in the case of, we know that the company is departing from, or the client departed from the acceptable reporting framework, or there are inadequacies, no, or the disclosures are inadequate, or there's a change in accounting policy but cannot be justified. So known yan, di ba? Known misstatements. So we know, we can determine, or we can quantify the impact of the misstatements. So in that case, we can the type of opinion that can be issued will be adverse or qualified opinion. Okay. Number 11. So thank you, Kim. Number 11. Yeah, Mika. Micaela.
Okay, number 11 po. Which of the following factors are considered in the selection of audit procedures to be performed in an engagement? Answer po is letter A, yung audit objectives,
Objectives.
level of audit risk, and type of audit evidence available po.
Bakit hindi yung
Since,
composition?
yun po. Since yung tatlo po is they are interconnected po with the procedures that needed in engagement, whereas yung composition po is hindi po siya included dun eh. It's outside na po the procedure.
Okay, so when do we do yung 2, 3, and 4? Which part or which phase of the audit?
After po ng pre-engagement.
Which is anong tawag doon? Yung risk assessment, no? During the risk assessment procedures. So part of our risk assessment is identification of audit objectives. So ito yan, di ba? What are the assertions that we're trying to address? Level of audit risk based on our assessment per assertion, and at financial statements level. And then the type of audit evidence available, no? What kind of can we perform physical count, or should we do confirmation? Yan. Yung composition of the audit team, nandun yan sa mobilization of the team, which is part of pre-engagement activities. Kaya hindi siya kasama dito sa selection of audit procedures to be performed. Okay? So, thank you, Mika. Number 12. Yan, Justin.
Which of the following is normally not included in the auditor's current file of audit documentation? Letter B po.
Letter B. minutes of meetings of the board of directors during the reporting period.
Opo.
Okay? Bakit hindi si letter A, letter C, or letter D? Yung tama ba yon?
Kasi po sir, di ba po yung current file or permanent file, ito po yung set po ng document or record po for the prior year po. So, ayun po yung sagot ko. Minutes of the meeting po.
Ha? Current year. Sige. So, hindi yun yung tama sagot. Si Nicole muna. Jobert and Winsala. Si Nicole muna. Hindi pa na nag-recite eh. Nicole.
Sir, ano po, yung a copy of entities organization chart.
Okay? Bakit yon?
Kasi po
Current
sir,
to
yung
ha? Current ha?
Opo. Yung sa current po kasi sir, 'di ba po ito po yung mga files na has not yet been completed po. Pero yung organization chart po kasi sir, parang ano na po siya, completed na po siya and nagawa na po siya inside the the entity.
Okay. Sige, thank you Nicole for that explanation but it's not the correct answer. Ayan, si Lorraine. Hindi na nagtaas si Jobert tsaka si ano. Sige, so Lorraine.
Yung letter C po, sir, yung working trial balance po, since current file po yung tinatanong.
Not. Not included. Ayan. So sige,
Yung
isa na
copy
lang.
po ng prior year po.
Isa na lang, no? So, prior years. So, letter A, no? So, ingat tayo sa mga ganitong questions, ha? Normally not. So, basahin maigi yung question, no? Not included in the auditor's current file. So, sagutin kayo na to, Joberta, na since isa na lang yung naiwan na doon sa choices. So, copy of prior years financial statements. So, it means, still applicable or still so permanent to. So still relevant in the current year's audit basically because we are going to look at the beginning balances, di ba? But it's not necessary to be included in our current year files. Yung mga sinabi niya dito, minutes of meetings of the board of directors during the reporting period, So it means information affecting the current year. So yun yung natin, current files. Ibig sabihin information related or affecting current years, no? Current year balances. Kaya natin siya nilalagay sa current file natin. Of course, working trial balance, 'di ba? Ang laman niyan is yung current year balances with comparative. So current year balances pa rin 'yan, 'di ba? Current year trial balance. Copy of the entities organization. So dito medyo nakaka-confuse, 'di ba? Confusing. But basically, we have to update regularly. We need to obtain an updated copy of the entity's organizational chart. Hindi naman kasi possible kasi, di ba, na maraming nagre-resign. Di ba? So possible na nawala na si ganitong employee previously handling this let's say collections or previously handling the treasury, okay, or the custodian, ganyan. Diba? So we have to update this kaya it should form part of the current file as well during the year. Okay, and actually ito part to ng understanding the entity and its client. We have to know who are the people, diba, in the organization. Sino yung mga kakausapin natin? Kanino tayo magre-raise ng concerns or magre-raise ng questions by looking at the organizational chart. Okay? Number 13. Ayan, Angelica Rose.
Number 13, a working paper that gives a component of line item to be presented on the face of financial statement is called working trial balance.
Okay, working trial balance, no? So it will show you the details or the amount of or the composition of the financial statement line items. So if it's cash, makikita mo dyan sa working trial balance kung ano yung laman ng cash, di ba? Petty cash fund, cash on hand, cash in bank, cash equivalents, no, and so on, so forth. So it's in that working trial balance. Supporting schedule, that's the usually the subsidiary ledger, di ba? Or the details. So nakita natin sa working trial balance, there is a cash or let's say trade receivables. So that trade receivable should be supported by a schedule or aging report or sub AR subledger. Okay? Lead schedule shows the current versus or the comparative period for a or comparative amounts for an FSLI. Actually, it also shows the composition, 'di ba? You will see there ano yung how much is the cash on hand during the period versus the prior period, no? Cash in bank, ganun din, current period, prior period. Draft of financial statements. So, it's already the financial statement. So, hindi naman siya paggagalingan ng amounts or the components of uh, line item. Kasi makikita mo na dito similar with what you are seeing in the financial statements already. Okay? Number 14. Ayan, si Joelyn Grace.
An auditor gathers audit documentation mainly to DPO, form an opinion on the fairness of the financial statement.
Okay, bakit hindi yung A, B, and C? Yeah, Joelyn.
Yes po. Bali parang part din naman po pero parang secondary po. Bali yung mainly din talaga is yung opinion parang for the overall po nung ano po.
Okay. So yung right, thank you, Jovelyn. So yung ABC actually different types of audit to. Detect fraud and misstatements, di ba? Forensic yan. Forensic audit. Evaluate management effectiveness. So ito yung effective pwedeng part of the internal audit, no? Governance or governance audit or yung external quality assurance or quality assessment yung natin, no? Review. So yun yung work dito, internal audit yan. Evaluate internal controls. Though required tayo na gawin to, no, as part of our audit, it's not the main objective, no? So ito is usually done if we are performing internal audit, no, effectiveness or evaluation of internal controls or the internal controls of the company. So audit of financial statements basically the objective is to form an opinion on the fairness of the financial statements. All right? Number 15. Malapit na. 15. Si Justin May. Justin May Jacobe?
Sir,
Yes. Yes, Justin.
which of the wait lang po. Which of the following is classified as substantive test? Letter D po.
Letter D. Okay, accounting for a sequence of issued credit memoranda. Hindi ba A, B, or C? O, di ko nakita siya nagtaas ng kamay. Eugene, Eugene. Pero nag-recite na si Eugene. Pero sige, Eugene.
Sir, B.
Letter?
B po.
B. O, bakit letter B, Eugene? Pag sinabi bang substantive test, anong gagawin natin dito?
Nagko-compute tayo dyan, sir. Nag-reconcile ng mga books.
Okay, so we are looking at already the details, no? Affecting the amounts and the disclosures in the financial statements. So not only the effectiveness, diba, of the internal controls. So letter A, so letter B is the correct answer, no? Letter A, review payroll checks. So ano ba makikita natin dito? If the checks were properly approved, diba? Or if the payroll, the amount paid or the payroll was paid using a check or with a debit advice. So it's more on controls, no? Internal controls. Scanning of employment contracts or yung mga 201 files. So meron bang impact yan sa financial statements? So it's just the rate, di ba? Checking if the company uh, is updating their files, no, for employment contracts. Um, do they follow yung minimum requirement of the government, no, regulatory requirements. So it's more on controls din to. Accounting for a sequence of issued credit memoranda. Yeah, probably pwede siyang procedure, substantive test, particularly completeness. But sequencing is more on the uh, control side, no? So hindi rin siya yung hindi siya purely substantive. So letter B, reconcile disbursements books with checks appearing in the bank statements. Usually we do this as part of our validation of anong procedure 'yon? Anong account to? Anong financial statement line items to? Disbursements per books with checks appearing in the bank statements. Saan nyo to makikita? Where do we perform this procedure? To what specific account? Are we testing or yeah, FSLI? Cash in bank during our examination of the bank reconciliation. Di ba? So ito yan, reconciling item yan. Specifically if the company is preparing proof of cash. Tama ba? Di ba sa proof of cash, you will see their beginning or previous month, then total debits, if it's per book, no, under book reconciliation. So if it's total debits, it's pertaining to ano yung debits? Additions, di ba? Yung mga collections by the bank during the year or collections of the company. And then credit naman is disbursements. No? Pagka under bank reconciliation, so total debits pertains to yung mga bank charges. Diba? Baliktad pala. To the yung outstanding checks, no? And total debits pertains to outstanding checks, where total credits usually pertains to deposit in transit. Diba? So yun. So letter B is the correct answer for number 15. Number 16. Sige, wait lang. Sino pa ba hindi nagsagot dito? Ito muna si Anna May. Anna May Nakamura. Ano ba? Yeah, Anna May Nakamura. Oh, wait lang na. Parang we can't hear you, Anna. Anna May. Oh, sige. Let's go to Nicole. Si Nicole Ann Francisco. Alam niyo dito? Just a sound lang, Nicole. But we can't hear your voice. Sira yung microphone. You can chat na lang in the chat box your answer. Sige, letter C, audit program. Okay? So audit documentation, that's already the results, no? Where we document the results of our audit. Wait lang. O yan. Audit plan, audit program, audit strategy. Hindi. Gather evidencing na to. Sorry, Nicole. So the answer here is letter A. Correct answer is letter A. No? Letter B, C, D, these are audit planning pa lang. So it's more on the part of the risk assessment, no? Procedures. So it's where we determine the responses to the auditories, no? Whereas yung audit documentation that's already during other gather required not to be completed during the gather evidence, or where we document or put our work related to the evidences that we gathered. Okay? Number 17, may nagtatas kanina, nawala na to. Okay, so number 16 is letter A, no? Audit documentation. B, C, D, basically parehas lang yung mga yan. Audit plan, audit program, and audit strategy. Okay? Number 17. Oh, yan. Anna May, can you try again? Kanina di ka namin marinig. Letter D. So which of the following may be used to document an auditor's understanding of the client's accounting system? A flowchart, a questionnaire, a narrative of that system. So letter D. So any of these three, no? Actually, a combination of these three is the is a best practice when documenting our understanding of the client's accounting system, and it will help the auditor, no, easily understand or identify, no, the risk and the responses to the risk, by having this documentation. Okay, a detailed documentation of the understanding of the client's accounting system. So letter D. Last item, who is the primary responsible for establishing an entity's internal controls? Lapasan mo na kita, Jobert. Meron pa tayo si Daryl. Ano to? Darlene Sarmiento. Letter B. Okay? So take note, the establishment of entities' internal controls is the responsibility of the entity's management. Okay? Bakit hindi si shareholder? Bakit hindi si external auditor? Darlene. Okay, so primary responsible. Actually, it's even hindi siya external, it's not so it will affect our independence, 'di ba? So independence issues here. Shareholders usually they provide the oversight, no? The so uh or users, they are the users, mali pala, of the financial statements, and usually yun lang, so they have the voting rights, they can any resolution related to they can vote for that, but it's the management who has the responsibility to establish a control. Of course, yung last is a user as well, no? It's regulatory agencies such as SEC, and they are only mandating, di ba? They are the one who's mandating that companies should establish an effective internal control. Okay? All right. So let's have here a quick case study. So materiality, regarding materiality. So who would like to take this one? Volunteer muna bago magtawag. Can you explain to me if this is a material item or not? So audit of a telecommunications client. Sino gusto sumagot nito? Siguro si Jobert na lang. Kanina pa siya nagtatas ng kamay. Di ba natatawag? Jobert, you want to answer this one? Can you give me your assessment? If this is a material error or material misstatement?
Sir, material po, sir.
Sige nga, can you read first and then let me explain why you said it's material?
You're auditing a telecommunication client and noted that the accountant wrongly added 1% charge to all local phone calls on July 1 in the billing system.
Aha.
Ay, saan po ba, sir?
Yan.
Ah, tama
So
po,
is this
sir.
material?
Yes po, material po, sir.
Why? What's your basis in that conclusion?
Sir, lahat ng phone calls, sir, since lahat ng client na apektuhan po, edi yung lahat ng sales po natin is mag-overstatement po. Overstated po.
For one day lang to.
Sir, kung smart naman po siya or Globe, syempre mas malaking company naman siya. Depende din, sir, kung small or big company siya. Kung sa ano, sir, kung big company naman siya, mas madami pong phone calls po yung nare-receive.
Okay. Ayan, yun lang yung gusto kong ano dito. That's the message, no? We cannot conclude right away, no? By looking at the information given that it's material or not. So like there's an example ni Jobert, if it's from a big, no? From a big players like Smart or Globe, then we can expect that it's material. Pero even if lahat ng customers yan, one day lang to, no per. So like 1% of local phone calls for one day. Pwede ding hindi pa, di ba? Pwedeng not material. But again, the message is we have to look at other considerations, not only the quantitative, no? So probably pwede natin sabihin na 1% is not material as to the total amount of revenue during the period. Pwede kasi ang revenue niya 1 billion, eh yung 1% na yan is nasa 100,000 lang. Di ba? So pwedeng not material yan. Pero if we look at yung next what if this error occurred more frequently? For instance, for every third phone call or on more days during the year. What impact would this have on materiality? Will it change your assessment? So pwedeng mas malaki na rin, di ba? Pwede dito sabihin natin mas material na to ngayon. No? Pwede ding hindi pa rin, di ba? So take note, it's an error. No, error occurring more frequently. So every third phone call, sabi niya ganyan. So we have to quantify. So in these first two items, we can use quantitative, no, factors. So pwede natin sabihin na balik lang talaga yan, 100,000 over 1 billion. No? Dito din, sabihin natin nag times 3 or sabihin natin 3 million over 1 billion, still immaterial. No? Or if based on the quantitative calculation or computation, it resulted to higher amount, let's say 100 million. So 10% of 1 billion, that will already be material. Diba? Actually, we can follow or we can consider the materiality set by the regulators, by the SEC. So for private companies, pwede nating sabihin 10% is material, 10% and above of the total assets or of the total revenue or P&L accounts. No, that will be material. If below that, we can still consider that as immaterial. No, or if we use certain benchmarks, if we follow, if we use profit or loss as our benchmark, and then 10% of profit or profit before tax as our benchmark, then 10% of that, yun yung magiging materiality natin. So that's what we can use to answer this question. No? But given that there is a limited information, so yun, magkakaroon talaga to ng that's the intention of this, no? Different answers, different opinions. Yeah. Okay? What about your number 3? What if you discovered the error was a result of the CFO deliberately overcharging the customer? Ano sa tingin nyo? Would this error then become material? Sino gustong sumagot nito? Yung scenario 3, you discovered that the error was a result of the CFO deliberately overcharging. Intentional na to.
Sir,
Will
I
that
think material po. And hindi na po siya magiging error. Kasi sir, meron na pong objective na would meet the budget for July. Parang fraud na po siya.
Okay, so it's a fraud, no? Hindi lang siya parang fraud na talaga to, deliberately overcharging. So intentional, 'di ba? So that's the difference between an error and a fraud. So pag error, pwede pa nating tignan yung other aspects, or we can consider the quantitative aspect, no, as our basis. But if it's due to fraud, no, so the misstatement is coming from a fraudulent act, from irregularities, no, within the company, then regardless of the amount, no, uh, kahit pa dun sa kanina na equivalent to 1% lang yan ng 1 billion, if it's due to fraud, it will be resulting to a material misstatement. So we consider that as a material misstatement already in the financial statements. So we don't need to consider anymore only the quantitative, but we also consider the fact that it's unintentional. CFO pa to, 'di ba? Part of the management. So we can assume, so as auditors, no, applying our professional skepticism and with the facts available, no, we can assume, or we can uh, consider looking at, or dito consider the other transactions, no, being handled by CFO to have a possibility to result into this kind of irregularities as well. So it could be pervasive in impact. That's why if it's due to fraud, wala lang tanong-tanong. It will be a material, no, misstatements in the financial statements. Okay? So dito na yon yung management override. Ano tinatawag natin? Any questions, clarifications? So that's on materiality. Anong kinalaman nito sa ano natin? Sa subject natin? There might be questions providing, no, this kind of information, no, asking you to determine the materiality, or asking you to determine whether the transactions are material or not. So how will you determine, or how will you establish your materiality threshold? Are there any questions? Or comments or clarifications? Wala nang sumasagot? Sir, still with me?
Yes, sir.
47 na lang pala tayo. Dami nang malis oh. Di yata interesting yung subject natin. Sige. So that's our warm up. So let's now go to the problem solving. All right. So I have here a long problem. So since this is about financial statements, no, so you are provided with the amounts that will be presented in the financial statements. So additional information, assuming that you are the auditor, no, so you were given with this additional information, and from this additional information, you are asked to determine the audited balances. Okay, so there are how many questions here? Actually, the whole financial statements yung titignan na natin. So 30 items, no? 30 items for the first problem. So what we're going to do is compute for or determine the correct balances or the audited balances by preparing this a working trial balance for this entity. So this is for CFC Inc. No? a company reporting under PFRS for small and medium-sized entities. So for the year ended December 31, 2021. Okay? So shall I give you the time to compute for this first? And then let's do the let's discuss the answers after 30 minutes enough. Next meeting na lang pala natin maano to, no? 10, 28, 20 minutes. Is that enough for you to complete, to solve the problem? Guys, 20 minutes kaya? Hello? O yan lang naman gusto kong malaman. So hindi, di ba? Di kaya, no? 30 items to, mahaba to. So it will take you an hour. So here's what we're going to do. No, I will assign you, no? I will assign 30 people, no, from this from the list dito. So tatawagin ko kayo, no, to answer the 30 questions. Actually 30 hanggang sa problem to na siguro kasi ilan ba tayo dito? 47. So problem 2 has ganun din, 20. So 50 items to. Exactly 50 items. No, may sagot na pala yung ano. So I will give you or I will assign you, no, to a certain item and yun yung sasagutan ninyo. But still, hindi sufficient or hindi enough yung 30 minutes. So, isa-isahin natin to pero tutulungan ko kayong magsagot dito sa ibang kung ano yung matatapos natin until 11 a.m. But you have to check, no, kung tama ba yung sagot or answer the assigned sa inyo, no, assigned account or item. Okay? So, kindly listen and no, take note kung anong number kayo. Right? So number 1, for problem number 1, Abigail Ocampo. No, number 2, Angel Manalo. Number 3, Angelica Rose Del Rosario. Dalawa pala Angelica Rose natin. Number 4, si Angelica Rose Santillan. Number 5, Ana May Nakamura. 6, Beatrice Marie Ramilo. 7, Bryce, no? 8, Carl. 9, Clarence. 10, Darlene. 11, Diane. 12, Eugene. 13, Francine Pearl. 14, Godwin. Number 15, Janine. 16, Jana. 17, Jamaica. 18, Jezebel. 19, Joanna Marie. 20, Joanne. 21, Jobert. 22, Joelyn. 23, Jonas. 24, Justin. 25, Kim. Kim Dariel, no? 26, Kimberly. 27, Kayla Kayabyab. 28, Kayla Marie. 29, Lee Ian. 30, Larry Windel. Okay? So that's for problem number 1. So tignan nyo na lang kung ano yung question related to your respective numbers. Okay? For problem number 2, Lorraine Joy, number 1. Number 2, Maria Feliciana. Number 3, Maria Jonah. Number 4, Mary Angela. Number 5, Micaela Baga. Number 6, Micaela Ann. Number 7, Micaela Gabriel. Dami Micaela. Number 8, Nicole Abigail. Number 9, Nicole Ann. Number 10, Patricia Ann. Number 11, Rika. Number 12, Rocky Mick. Number 13, Syra. Number 14, Bianca. And number 15, Winsan. Okay? Sino gusto mag-volunteer doon sa number 16 to 20? Sino gustong sumagot na number 16 to 20 for problem number 2? Ako na itong 31. 16 to 20. May sagot na eh. Pero the computation, you will share you will give us the how do you compute the 16 to 20. Guys? Any volunteer? Jobert, gusto mo? Number 16? Hello?
Sir, try ko po yung 16.
Oh, sige. Jamaica, number 17.
Okay po, sir.
Okay, Eugene, 18. Eugene? Okay, si Eugene na lang, number 18, no? Yeah, yes, I. Kimberly Rose Pangan, number 19.
Okay po, sir.
And number 20, si Justin May Jacobe. Okay? Sige. So pagtulungan natin, pero you try to compute now yung while we are discussing the problem. So let me go back to problem number 1. So yun yung assignment nyo, ha? Wait lang. Let me get a screenshot ng para ma problem number 2, Eugene. Yung additional So meron na akong dinectate na yung sa first yung sa problem 1. Teka lang balikan natin kung ano yung naka-assign sa'yo doon. So sa problem 1, Eugene, you are assigned to number, wait lang, 1. Number 12. So item number 12 for problem number 1. Okay, and then number 18 sa problem number 2. Okay, tama, Jobert 16, Jamaica 17, no? Sino nga yung number 19?
Sir, ako
Justin?
po, number 19 po.
Si Kimberly Pagan, and then 20 sa'yo, Justin. Okay? Sige. So let's discuss muna yung and then you continue solving for your respective items, no? Yes. 12 problem 1 and then 18 problem number 2. Okay? Sige. So here, problem number 1, you were provided with the completed or with the unaudited or unadjusted trial balance of CFC Inc. No? So you were provided with the different accounts and their balances. So pag ganito, tignan muna natin agad kung normal ba yung balance or not, right? So accounts like assets, of course, should be the balances should be on the debit, contra accounts or contra asset accounts or credit, di ba? So yan. So check if petty cash fund, tama ba to? Debit balance, cash in bank, trading securities. So based on this account, based on this trial balance, do you see any abnormal balances or unusual balances? Meron ba tayong nakikita dito na mali? So that's the first, no? First thing to do, check muna agad yan. And then if you identified any abnormal balances, then tignan natin, no? If there are additional informations related to that. Okay? So after checking the balances, of course, we have to check the footing. Di ba? Check mo, tama ba to? Total debits talaga bang 50,564,275? If we are going to add all these amounts, no, under the debit column. Same with the credit. 50,564,275 ba? And of course, compare the two amounts, di ba? The amount should be equal. Otherwise, hindi yan trial balance na tama na ano, di ba? The trial balance is not correct if there's a difference. Okay? So every problem that you will be solving, no, every time that you see or that you are provided with the schedules or trial balance, that's the first thing to do, no? Check if there are normal if the account balances are under the normal balance of that account. Second, perform footing, no, of the total amounts and compare the total debits and total credits. Okay? And then proceed to the additional information. So yan yung lagi niyo nakikita, 'di ba, sa audit problems. Bibigyan ka ng schedule, bibigyan ka ng details, and then additional information or additional notes. Right? Sagot naman kayo, guys.
Yes po, sir.
O, di ba? Ayan. So, after looking at the trial balance, look at the additional information, additional notes. So, in our problem number 1, you were given. First item provided is the results or a procedure pertaining to petty cash fund. So, do we have a petty cash fund here in the trial balance? Yes, there is, right? We have 15,000 pesos balance, debit. So, correct balance yan or normal balance of the petty cash fund. Details of that is here. That 15,000 is consists of currency and coins, 6,000, petty cash vouchers, 6,000, employees post-dated checks. Now, what you're going to do is, ano, what's the next step? You were provided with this information. So what are you going to do? Sino yung assigned sa petty cash fund? Si Abigail. So for you to determine the correct balance of the petty cash fund, anong gagawin mo dito sa information provided to you? This additional information related to petty cash fund. Abigail?
Yes, sir. Yung sasagutan na po ba, sir? Or
Hindi, tinatanong ko lang, anong gagawin mo dito sa 15,000 na additional information?
i-check din po muna if tama po dun sa unaudited trial balance, and then and i-compute po, sir, i-check po yung mga items na dapat alisin.
Alright. Based on? Ano bang usually kina-consider natin if we are auditing petty cash fund? We check first kung ano ba yung ginagamit niyang petty cash fund system, di ba? Naka-impress fund system ba to? Then, ano pa yung ano natin? We determine how much is the accountability, di ba? And compare it against accounted amounts. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Any difference? Ano tawag natin doon? Is shortage or overage? What we're going to do with the shortage or overage? Abigail?
Idadagdag or ibabawas po, sir.
Idadagdag or ibabawas. So there could be an adjustment related to that. Okay? So that's what you're going to do. Check this information. Currency and coins, tama ba yan? Petty cash vouchers, do we include that as part of the petty cash balance? Or we have to prepare a necessary, or there's a necessary adjustment? No? Employees post-dated checks. Tama ba to? Part to ng petty cash fund. So these are what we call the accounted, di ba? But in terms of the accountability, is it correct that this should be the accountability? Or this should be part of the petty cash balance at the end of the year? Okay? So that's for the petty cash fund. Next, additional information are provided related to cash in bank. O sino yung cash in bank? Who's assigned to answer the correct balance of cash in bank? Si Angel Zaira? Nawala siya? But for cash in bank, no, what we're going to do is, ano ba yung usually nakikita natin na possible misstatements or sources of misstatements when we are auditing cash in banks, or when we're talking about cash in bank? What will you look at if you are auditing a cash in bank? Sino gusto sumagot? Yan, si Jamaica.
Sir, bank reconciliation po ba?
Okay, bank reconciliation. And in that bank reconciliation, what will you see? What can you see in the bank reconciliation? There are?
Sir, mga credit memo, if meron pong deposit in transit na hindi po na-account.
Okay. There are reconciling items, no, Joanne? So ito, yung mga example, the deposit in transits, debit memos, credit memos, outstanding checks, di ba? So these are the usual reconciling items. There might be other there might be recon items such as those resulting from errors, ganyan, no? And then dito, if you will look at the information provided, di ba? There are terms such as DAIF. What is DAIF? Ano ibig sabihin ng DAIF? Yes, Winsal.
Drawn against insufficient fund po.
So ano ibig sabihin nun? Kung drawn against insufficient fund?
Ibig sabihin, tumalbog po yung cheque kasi kulang po yung laman ng bangko.
Kulang yung laman ng bank account ni payor, no? Or ni payee, pala. So the one or the bank account in this case, the customer's bank account, no, is insufficient. So what should be the impact of that if there's an insufficient fund? So yun yung titignan natin, di ba? So ibig bang sabihin, for this item, we need to create an audit adjustment, or tama lang to na part siya ng cash in bank? Okay? Also, if you will look at this in the problem, some problems will give you the breakdown, just like dito sa number 1, no, yung petty cash fund. For some, it will only give you additional or some information. So like dito na mention naman, no? Sum of the December 31, 2021. So you would expect that the amounts here will reconcile with the balance in the cash in bank. This 243,600. Kasi some accounts, some ano lang to, recon items. Okay? But you have to consider, no? You have to look at each item here. Whether, so sabi dito, reconciling items in the cash in bank means these items were included in the 243,600. So, ibig sabihin, kung kasama siya dito, tama ba yung ginawa ni client or ni auditee? No? Is this 35,000 correct to be included in the 246,600 given that this is pertaining to a DAIF? Okay? Ganun din. Letter B. Bank credit memo representing collection by bank from one of the company's major customers. So if this is the trial balance of the company, do we expect that the credit memos or this bank credit memo already included in the balance in this unadjusted cash in bank balance in the 243,600? Ano ba si credit memo? Is it a book or bank recon item?
Book po.
Book. Okay, if it's a book recon item, ibig sabihin, what should we do with this, Winsal?
Added po sa cash and bank account.
Okay, so it should be, ibig sabihin, unrecorded pa yan sa books since it was already only included in the bank, no? Bank statements or bank balances, and so there could be a necessary adjustment related to this item. Okay. Check letter C. A check drawn by another company for 25,000 incorrectly charged by the bank in December 2021. So anong klaseng ano to? Recon item. Error. Okay? So if it's an error, is it a book or bank error?
Bank. Yeah.
So if it's a bank error, meron bang impact yan sa book? Maapektuhan ba yung 243,600?
Hindi po.
Okay, hindi. Di ba? So, yan. Ibig sabihin, may adjustment ba or wala? Wala, di ba? Check again kung tama yung ano natin doon, ha? Sagot natin. Considering kulang na yung time natin. Pero babalikan natin to when we discuss the answers, no? In our next meeting. Okay? Letter D, checks issued by the company in 2021 and not yet cleared by the bank as of December 31, 2021. So what is this item or recon item? Checks issued, not yet cleared. Anong tawag natin dito?
Outstanding check po.
Okay, outstanding checks. Yan, ilan lang yung estudyante nating ano dito. Si Winsal lang and yung others. May pa unti-unti. Guys, also answer, no? Unmute yourself if you know the answer. Okay? So this is an outstanding check. So if it's an outstanding check, may adjustment ba? Or wala?
Meron po sir sa part ni bank.
Sa part ni bank. Pero sa books, it's already recorded. Right? Ayan. So, pwedeng meron, pwedeng wala, no? Or dapat ang expectation natin dito is wala na siyang impact sa books since it's already recorded in the books. Okay? Letter E, the company wrote several checks for accounts payable that were held and not yet mailed until June 15, 2022. So, subsequent month na siya na mail or na send yung na send out, no? The checks were sent out in subsequent months. So, anong tawag natin sa ganung check?
Post-dated, sir.
Post-dated checks ba? Undelivered checks, no? Post-dated checks, if na-issue na yung cheque pero hindi pa ma cash dahil it's dated uh, no, on a date, future date, no? So, kaya post-dated. Ito, na-issue na, nagawa na yung check, no? Dated or at the end of 2021, but it was only mailed subsequently. So it means still undelivered or unreleased. So unreleased checks. So what are we going to do with this unreleased or undelivered checks? May impact ba siya? Is there an impact to the balances recorded in the books? Will it affect the cash in bank balance? All right. So what's the impact? Kyla or Lorraine?
Kailangan po madeduct sa book po.
Saan i-deduct?
Sa book balance po.
Okay. I-deduct natin so na doble. Kasi this were already recorded, no? Or these were included in the outstanding checks, as of December 31. So if it's outstanding checks, di ba, issued, so it's already considered in the balance of 243,600. So tama ba na natanggal siya doon? Di ba, outstanding checks is a reduction. Okay, so it should be added, no? Add to book balance. So sabi nga natin, if the check is an unreleased check, this should be reverted to the cash balance and payable balance. Alright, so ibig sabihin, add back. Okay, you have to add it to the cash and accounts payable balance. Alright, so for this number 2, you can also prepare a bank reconciliation, di ba? Given that you're provided with this information. Okay? So identify which of this will affect the book balance, and only those affecting the book reconciliation will have impact to the balances. So, yan. That's for number 2. Number 3. Bakit KitKat Corporation to? It should be CFC Inc. Okay? So, for number 3, trading securities portfolio for CFC Inc. contain the following. So, if it's a trading security, anong gagawin natin dito? Ano yung usual, natin? Accounting concern or accounting consideration. If we're talking about trading securities, under IFRS 9, ano to? Anong kabangga nito? So remember, we're still using trading securities since the company is using PFRS for small and medium-sized entities. But if it's full PFRS, what's the equivalent of trading securities under IFRS 9? FVPL, okay? Fair value or financial instruments or financial assets measured at fair value through profit or loss. So if it's FVPL and or trading securities, what should be the proper measurement? What's the subsequent measurement of the investments or financial instruments? So trading securities to. It should be the
Fair value, sir.
fair value. Okay? So Eugene cost is initial measurement. No? So since this is a trading security or it's a financial asset, no, measured at fair value through profit or loss. So subsequent measurement is at fair value. So using this information provided, we are auditing 2021, no? So anong ibig sabihin nitong amounts provided here? So it means the cost or at the purchase date, no, when the investments or trading securities were acquired, the company paid 380,000. But at the end of 2020, the fair value of the trading securities is at 330,000. Okay? So, ano ibig sabihin nun? Since it's at 330,000, bumaba yung value. So, there is a unrealized loss. No? Unrealized loss on fair value amounting to 50,000 pesos. But that's the beginning, no, of 2021. So come 2021, at the end of 2021, the amount of or the fair value of the trading securities increased to 350,000. So anong ibig sabihin nun? What do we do with the 20,000 increase? So your answer here will have impact doon sa income statements. So be careful, no? So dapat tama yung analysis dito. So sino yung assigned dito? Si Angelica Rose Del Rosario. Tama ba?
Opo, sir.
Yeah, so yan. So that's what you're going to do, Angelica, no? You have to try to properly account for for the movement, no? Or for the proper measurement of the trading securities. Okay? For the rest, ganun din, no? Yung gagawin nyo. Look at each item. So like for example, dito sa accounts receivable, 3544. Ibig sabihin, binigyan tayo ng breakdown. So the 3,544,000, is it the amount presented in the trial balance? Yes. So it means the 3,544 is composed of customers' accounts, advances to officers, employees, and consignment. So tama ba yun? So similar with the other items there, the items that we've already discussed, you have to analyze, no, whether these are properly recorded as part of trade and other receivables or should be adjusted. Okay? So I think we have to cut the discussion up to here, or at least up to number 3, item number 3. So please continue, no, answering the problem. So even if hindi ka assigned doon sa ano, try to compute or to answer, no, problems 1 and 2, so that by next week we'll have to answer na lang, ano na lang, discuss the answers, no, on the 2 problems. Okay? So I have here the list of your assigned numbers, so I will call you one by one, no, next Saturday to answer, to give your answer and explain, no, your answers. Now probably if we have still time, we will be able to complete the answers to problems 1 and 2. We'll move to our next topic, which is misstatements, no, in the financial statements. Okay? So it's 11:01 already, class. So I hope you were able to learn, or at least refresh yourselves, no? And yan, the way that I discuss, no, or I did the discussion is something na helpful to you, or um, effective. Pag hindi, let me know, no? You can comment, you can send me a note, you can put that in the Google Classroom, no? And yeah, I will try to change or adjust the approach of this discussion, or the way that I do the discussion. Okay? So medyo tahimik pa kay class. I hope next meeting lahat magiging ano na, no? Participative, interactive yung magiging discussion natin. Is that okay, class? Can I expect that from you?
Yes, sir.
Yes po, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can I get an emoticon? Meron tayong emoticon, guys. Yan, no? Can I get an approve emoticon? O pwede din disapprove kung ayaw ninyo. Yes, Ian. Ian. Are you raising your hand? Okay, sige, napindot lang. Okay? So with that, nice meeting you, everyone. I hope medyo okay yung naging ano natin, first meeting natin, and we can sustain or at least improve in the next coming weeks. So hope to see you again or see you again next Friday, next Saturday, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
Thank you,
Thank you po,
sir.
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you po,
All right,
sir.
Thank you po.
God
Thank you,
bless
sir.
everyone. Thank
Thank you
you.
po, sir.
Thank you po.